Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stewart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this lovely forest sunset just for beginners. It's a really easy tutorial today. I'm going to teach you how to block it in, how to use colours and tones, not detail, just to create realism and create a light effect so you can paint this really easy woodland landscape. So let's get into it. That's a really easy tutorial, but you will need the following colours. You can make some of the colours, such as pink and crimson and burnt sienna, out of the core colours, so you don't need all of these. Now all I've done, I've got a burnt sienna painted canvas that I've drawn with chalk the outline of some trees. We're going to have the horizon about halfway through. We're going to have a light effect coming through the trees. We're going to have some sunlight, and then we're just going to get darker as we move away, and we're going to have some easy shadows just of the trees, just where the sunlight is peeking through. We're going to have little dark shadows, but it's a super easy tutorial today. It's really for beginners. I just want to teach you all how to use tones to create realism in your work. So the first things first, we're going to take a bright white and we're just going to block in where our sunlight is going to be, and then we're going to mix white and a little bit of yellow, but predominantly white, just to create a off-white, and it's just going to be sort of the glowing color of the sky around our sun. Now what we're going to just try to do is we're going to block in our painting. We're just going to block in the background. I've used chalk just to put where I want roughly where things to be, but really you don't have to. You can just sort of block it in, and all we want to do is with a really pastel tone create the sunlight effect around it. Now we're going to get some of this color, which is purple and predominantly white. So just like we mixed the yellow, lots and lots and lots of white and a dot of purple, and we're just going to create this lavender tone. Now I've got pre-mixed, so purple, lots and lots and lots of white. You can add a dot of black, and all we're going to do is just this area is getting the least amount of sunlight, so this area is a bit cooler in tone. So again, with acrylics, as I always say, don't worry if they're streaky, don't worry if you have brush marks on your canvas. And all we're going to do, look, we're just going to mix the two tones together now. Predominantly more of the yellow and white than the purple and white, just to make it a nice blend in tone. Yeah, and don't worry if you get streaks, we will probably have to paint over it. I always paint my canvas burnt sienna simply for that fact. When I'm using pastel tones such as these really light in tone colours, it just shows you how streaky the paint is. So all you have to do is just get a hairdryer, just blitz it one time. It takes 2 minutes to dry, and then you can literally just dry your work and reapply the paint, and the paint will look less streaky and will not have any horrible brush marks in it. So with the power of editing, we can just do that now. So all I'm going to do, look, just block it in. It looks really rough, looks really scruffy. That's totally normal. So all we're going to do is dry it with a hairdryer and just go over the top with a second coat of the exact same tones. So it's just white, add a little dot of yellow just around the sun, and just block in around these two predominant trees. Now the reason we've got these two big trees here is because we want to draw the viewer's eyes into the sunlight, and I'm going to teach you just using colour. We're not going to do any detail today. This is perfect, this tutorial for beginners. So we're going to do just a really easy tutorial today. So I'm just trying to show you how you can use colours rather than detail, just to trick the viewer's eyes. So look, just by adding a second coat of paint, look how much more prominent the colours look. They look much more better. They don't look as streaky. If you get streaks still, that's the thing with watery acrylics. Just dry it with a hairdryer and just reapply the paint, and the streaks will come out. So when you're happy with your background and it's nice and blended and you've got all your streaks out, we're going to do the trees. So all we're going to do, as I say, it's a super easy tutorial for beginners today. So we're just going to use colours just to trick the viewer's eyes. So we're not going to do any detail, but we're going to use bright cad yellow to create the illusion of heat coming through our trees. So the illusion of sunlight. So we're going to use bright yellow on the inside of our trees. And then we're going to get a really super bright orange, so a cad yellow and a cad orange, and we're just going to outline the left hand side or the outer side of our tree here, and the outer side of our other tree. and that's just to frame it. So what it does is it just creates the illusion that the sun is peeking through between these two trees. So it's super easy. Now to get burnt sienna, all you have to do is mix a little bit of brown and some orange. So if you haven't got burnt sienna at home, it's the colour I paint my canvas. It's just brown and some orange, and we're just going to put the tops of the trees on, so these parts of the trees aren't getting as much sunlight. And we're just going to do it at the bottom. So imagine these trees look like, say, flared trousers. The bottom of a tree is always thicker, so the trunk is always thicker than the top half. So if you make your top half a bit chunky by accident, just make sure that its bottom is a bit more chunkier, so it's got more junk in the trunk at its base. And then all we're going to do is we're going to mix some blue and black together to create Prussian blue. So blue and black. And then we're just going to add a little bit of that burnt sienna, so that would be orange and brown, and we're going to just create a darker sort of shadow tone, but it's still got some heat in it because it's got a little bit of that orange and brown in it. So black and blue and a little bit of orange and brown, and you should get the really nice, not too dark, we don't want it black, we don't want it jet black, because we want to keep it blended, and that's almost the silhouette color of the light. So don't worry if it's scruffy. And then while we've got our flat brush, we're just going to add some trees. So all I'm going to do is come straight down with a flat brush, and I'm just going to add some trees. So now I've got that nice dark shadow tone. I'm just going to add where I want my trees to be. So where we just had those little trunks, I'm just putting them back just roughly where I want things to be. So all I'm going to do is get some black and blue and just mix it into that mix just to make it a little bit darker. So just like our sky, I'm just going to add a tiny bit of crimson and orange to it just to heaten it up, just so it's not too dark. But just like our sky going a bit more cooler in tone with the purple, we're going to try and match that with the tone of the trees. So the reason we're adding a little bit more black and blue and a little bit of crimson is to create this darker tone. So look, you can see it's darker. It's much darker than the orangey brown tones. And what that does, it just looks like it's further away from the sunlight. So it's a really easy trick. As I keep saying to you, this forest tutorial is absolutely perfect for beginners. I've got a really bad shoulder injury at the moment, and lucky enough it's not my painting arm, but I'm in a lot of pain. I'm on a lot of painkillers at the moment and having physio. So I thought, why not do a really easy tutorial for everyone at home that isn't too complicated, and I can still work a bit of magic with one arm like a one-arm bandit. So there we go, look, so really easy. So we're going to get some of that yellow and white. So do you remember it was just lots and lots of white and a dab of yellow. And we're going to add a little bit of orange to it, just a tiny bit, and we're just going to block in this area, and all that is just the grass on the horizon that's getting a bit of the sunlight. Because my brush had a little bit of that dirty brown on it, it's actually worked out alright, and it's just made it a bit cloudier in tone, but you can just add a tiny bit of brown or a tiny bit of black. Now if you just add a little bit of pink and orange together, so pink you just make with red and white, and just a little bit of orange, and just add a little bit of white and yellow just to pull a bit of the colour out and just make it sort of a peachy tone. So a little bit more white just to make it a little bit more pastel. We're just going to get warmer as we move away from it, and we're just going to block in. These are all the areas of the grass, or so to speak, the woodland floor that is getting all the sunlight. So where they haven't got shadows for the trees, we want to create the illusion of heat with these tones. So we're just using this really pastel orangey yellow just to create the illusion of this is all the area of grass and the flooring that is getting all the sunlight peeking through from the background sun. So once you're happy with it, we're going to do the shadows on the trees. So we're just going to add some purple, some blue and black just to make a musty colour, and a little bit of crimson just to add a little bit of heat to it so it's not too dull. The great thing about crimson, so crimson is just red and purple, okay? It just adds a little bit of heat, but it's still a very cool tone. So when you want to add shadows and you don't want them too harsh, by using crimson on the underneath, on the underpainting, you can trick the eye and just make a nice transition between a warm tone and a shadow tone. So you haven't got this huge jump from bright orangey yellow to a really dark cool black or purple. So by just add a little bit of crimson, so red and purple is just crimson, okay? So if you haven't got crimson at home, don't worry. And all I'm doing, I'm just going right around the edge of the painting just to frame it. I just want to frame it. I just want the viewer's eyes to focus right on those two trees in the middle. So look, all you do is you just create diagonals where you envision the trees to be. So really, really easy technique. And then when it dries, it should dry a little bit darker. So as I say, don't worry if it's scruffy. So we're going to start at the back now and we're going to work our way towards the viewer. So we're going to create some yellow and greens to create an olive green colour. So the colour of kind of like an olive or a lime. So all it is yellow and green. We're going to add a little bit of white to it so it's not too harsh. So yellow and green together and a little bit of white. A little bit more yellow than green just to make it really pastel. So we just got to load up a fan brush and all we're going to do is we're going to create some far away leaves. So the reason we're using a really pastel tone is because our sky is really pastel in tone, because all that sunlight is beaming through. What it does is sucks all the colour out of the tree, out of the leaves, and you get that sort of impression of leaves that are far away, but they're not overbearing, they're not like silhouettes. So all we're doing is by using a really light pastel tone, we're just creating the illusion of far away trees and shrubbery in the background. So all I'm doing is I'm using a fan brush, I'm just splatting shapes and I'm leaving plenty of the background colours. But because we've got that lovely transition in the background colour, it just tricks the eye. So again, it's just super easy techniques. Remember, acrylics always dry darker in tone, so by using a really pastel tone and then now getting a bit darker, once they're dry and you can see them getting darker. So all I'm doing is just getting some of that green and yellow, adding a tiny bit of orange, and these are just some of the leaves that are a bit darker, so some of the shadowy leaves that, because they've got a bit of orange in them, they're just getting a bit of heat. So again, just trying to create the illusion of trees and shrubberies and bushes in the background just to give some texture. Nothing complicated, super easy, really easy technique. So by just leaving plenty of the background, you can just create the illusion of leaves and branches. Really easy, takes 30 seconds and you're done. Now the sunlight is super hot, so we want to create a tone that resembles that. So we're going to get some burnt sienna, which is brown and bright orange, and we're just going to use the edge of a flat-ended brush just to create a nearby tree that's getting lots of sunlight, and that's why it's so bright and luminous and vibrant in tone. But we want to create some far off trees just to make our woodlands look more realistic. So we're going to get some brown, some of that olive tone, which was green and yellow, so brown, green and yellow, and we're going to create a pastel-y tone. Now the reason we're going to create a pastel-y tone is we're just going to use the flat brush and we're just going to create far off trees in the background, and the reason we're using that tone is to push them back just so they look like they're in the far background in the horizon. So you can use your flat end brush or you can use a fine liner to create some branches, but all you want to do is just have a little bit chunkier base on your trunk than the top half of your tree, and just come up with a straight line and you should get a nice tree shape. And because that tone is quite pastel, as I say, it's a little bit darker than those leaves we did. You can use the tone to create things like branches and some foliage just to create the illusion of detail in your woods. But as I say, it's totally for beginners, this tutorial. It's a really easy one. We don't want to go super detailed, but you can, if you want to, you can add lots and lots of detail. You can always go to woods and take photos for references. If you go at sunset, you can always take the lovely photos and then use them. And now you know how to mix these tones, you can apply it to your own reference photos. So we've got this nice composition, it's nice painting. So we're going to get some burnt sienna and we're just going to put this tree back in. So just like the one to its right, these trees are getting the most sunlight. So that's why they're much brighter in tone. So that's why we're using some of that burnt sienna just to imply that. So on this side of this big chunky tree, we're just going to show where the sunlight is hitting it, and the same on this one. So all we're doing, we're just trying to match where the sunlight is coming from the sun, and it's just peeking around, and it's just sort of giving these trees a softer edge. So we're going to mix some blue and black together to get Prussian blue, so blue and black, and we're going to add a little bit of burnt sienna, not too much. So we've got this nice hot dark brown, and all we're going to do is just edge the opposite edge. So this is the edge that's not getting much sunlight, so one side is getting lots and lots of sunlight, and the other edge is very dark and not getting much sunlight at all. So super easy trick again, look, just by doing that, it just makes it look real. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to block in now these ones with the same tone. So all it is black, blue, and a little bit of burnt sienna, which is brown and orange. So again, just always just try to make the base of your trees a little bit more chunky at the base, because the trunk is where its roots are, so just always make them a little bit chunkier. And all we're going to do is just do the same at the top, just to frame the piece, just so it looks nice and framed. I'm just going to do this one here on the left hand side. So great thing about a flat brush is because they're totally straight, it's really easy to do a straight edge. So there we go. So we're going to use a blender brush, and all we're going to do now this area is dry is we're going to get some bright cad yellow, and we're just going to softly blend the tones in just to make them look less blocky. So all we're doing is using bright yellow first, and then while it's still wet, we're just going to blend it with some orange. So we're going to use some bright cad orange just to create this light effect. So we've got this yellow going into orange, and then we have orange going into burnt sienna. So just by adding a little bit while it's all wet and just merging the colours into one another, we can just create a nice transition in the tones. So yellow to orange, and then orange to burnt sienna. And all you have to do to blend it is just go between the two tones. So if you're going between burnt sienna and orange, you just create a mix between the two, and you just soften up that transition. So you just go over the top. Now a blender brush is really, really soft, so it's perfect for this. But look, all we're doing is just trying to make the transitions look natural. So as I say, it's a really easy tutorial, but I still want you to learn techniques that you can apply for your more advanced tutorials. So just by getting some yellow, we're just going to create this sort of circle effect, and that looks like the sunlight is peering through. And by look, just mixing yellow and orange together, I've got a bit of a dirty brush here, but yellow and orange just to mix the colors. Remember, orange is really powerful, so you don't need much, so more yellow than orange. And then what we should do, so whatever tones you're blending, just create a mix between the two. So you've got this bridge tone, and just softly just mix the two tones together, and your transitions should look a lot softer to the eye. So really, really easy technique. And all it does, it just creates the illusion that sunlight is peeking through. Now you can do this with anything. We've done this on cliffs before. We can do this on trees. We can do this on people. So any silhouette is really, really good to do. So we're going to mix some crimson, some yellow and orange, and a little bit of black. So crimson, yellow, orange, and a little bit of black. And you should get a dark orangey crimsony brown. And we're going to use our fan brush, and we're just going to add some texture. Now all we're doing is we're just implying texture on the floor. So on the floor you're going to have loads of things like twigs and leaves and bark and just rough terrain. So all we're going to do is where we've got that dark purpley colour, we're just going to use this shadow tone and just imply terrain. So all I'm doing is I'm using a fan brush, and the great thing about a fan brush, they are perfect for things like leaves, but if you turn them sideways, they're perfect for things like grass and texture for floor. So again, it's just a super easy technique, a cheat almost, just to see how you can do it. And you can almost, by leaving gaps in the background, create the illusion of texture on your floor. So our forest sunset painting is starting to take shape. As I say, you can go really detailed. We're just painting this one for beginners today. This is just a very quick 20-25 minute tutorial, but as I say, you can get your own reference photos. Now you know how to mix these colors, you can apply it to more advanced work and then just take your time. So just by painting a painting that say takes 2 hours, by just going over things, not moving on till you get things more photorealistic, you can create masterpieces. So as I say, by learning the tones and learning how light works, it's really easy to then create detail later. So look, we're going to add some pink and orange. So pink and orange and a little bit of purple just to make it a little bit darker. So pink, orange and purple. And we're just going to swap over to our fan brush again. So we're going to load that up and we're going to use that brush exactly the same way for some highlights. So where we put some darks, we're just going to put some highlights. So these are just bits of texture that are getting a little bit more sunlight. And all we're doing, we're just splatting it on over the top of the orange. And again, it's just to give it a bit of texture. It's just to imply certain bits of grass and stuff getting a bit of sunlight. So that's all we're doing. Really easy. So just like the leaves in the background, we're trying to create the effect of woodlands and forest. So we're trying to create texture, and all we're doing is just by leaving gaps in the underpainting, we're just doing that. So super easy. And then we're just going to get some of that crimson and some black and blue. So crimson, black and blue, just to get a really dark tone. So a little bit more black, so it's really dark. And then we're just going to create some harsh shadows just at the bottom here. Again, just to frame the painting. So, and just to imply some really harsh shadows. So these are the bits that are, you know, when you get lots and lots of sunlight, you get the complete opposite. You get really dark shadows sometimes when you get things like a silhouette. So all we're doing is just, when I move my hand, using the fan brush just to create sort of harsher shadows towards the viewer. And just like always, we're using our darkest tones. That's why we're adding a little bit more black as we come closest to the viewer. And I want to make it very dark in the left hand corner because that's where I want to put my signature. So that's why I'm just making it a lot darker just on this corner. But again, just like Bob Ross says, by darkening up your corners, it just frames the composition and it just makes it look easier for the viewers to view the sun. So I'm going to get some of that yellow and white, so predominantly white, and I'm just going to do the opposite. So I'm going to use the texture of the brush just by leaving gaps, just to create the illusion of grass tops and texture. All these bits get in the sunlight. So look, really easy, super easy. So look, all these bits are getting this really harsh sunlight, and that's why they're sort of glowing, and that's why they're super bright. And then I'm going to mix some yellow and orange. So yellow and orange on my fan brush to get a really nice peachy tone. And I'm just going to do the same. And all it is just these areas a little bit cooler in the light, but they're still getting some of that really powerful sunlight. So just like those trees, by using that orange and yellow, we're sort of matching the tones and we're just creating the illusion of light coming through and creating texture on our work. Really easy, look, super easy. Such an easy painting tutorial this is. So we're just going to get some bright yellow, just add it a little bit to the orange, and I'm just bridging the two just so there's not such a harsh jump between the really bright white and the yellow and the orange. So again, just bridging the tone just like we did with the trees. As I say, you can go back and forth and use a fine liner and use every dot of every tree, but I'm a bit in pain today, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to mix some yellow, orange and a tiny bit of purple and a tiny bit of green just to get a nice hot tone. And I'm just going to put in some bushes, and these are areas that are just around the base of the horizon where you get things like shrubs and trees and odd leaves, and they're getting the most sunlight because that's where the sun is beaming from the background. And it's just by using a warm tone just to suggest that, and all it does is just again tricks the eye and just makes it look a little bit more realistic. So super easy. Nothing hard, there's no detail in this painting. So I've signed it in the left hand corner. We've got this lovely light effect. We've got these really contrast of dark shadows and dark tree trunks. You've learned how to put things further off into the background to create depths. You've learned how to do things like texture on your terrain, on your woodland floor. So you've painted this gorgeous forest sunset in just over 20 minutes. So thank you so much for watching. We have lots of landscape tutorials here on my channel that should be coming up on the right hand side. My name is Murray. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you to everyone who's already liked and subscribed, and take care and have a really nice weekend. So look after yourself, guys. Bye.